Well, it feels like it's been ever. It feels like it's been forever, I should say. We are back. New year, new us.
It was last
podcast,
year.
really.
Last year.
Mm-hmm.
Last year was the last time we did one.
Welcome to 2020. Not the show, but the year.
Ooh.
I thought the Barbara Walters things were kind of hilarious, by the way, around the new year. I don't know why.
Why is that?
2020? Isn't it?
Wasn't she on? Yeah.
People were making memes. Welcome to 2020.
Oh.
I don't know if you saw it. Did you just log off Twitter and life there for a little while after football season?
A little bit. But also, I saw that this is weird. She's the same age as Anne Frank and Martin Luther King Jr.
Wow.
How's that?
Somebody also tweeted out the other day that Jonathan Taylor Thomas is older than Tim Allen when Home Improvement was on.
Oh my God.
That makes you feel old.
And he
so that means that we're probably older than Tim the Toolman Taylor than when that show was on now.
That would definitely be.
We're probably the same age. You're right about that.
And he declared for the NFL draft too.
Jonathan Taylor Thomas?
Jonathan
Taylor, Wisconsin running back. It's good to be back, though, Dave.
It's great to be back,
how
my
are the
friend.
Holidays, man?
Great. Got to go to Las Vegas first, which was great.
Mm-hmm.
It was not lucrative, I'll tell you that much. but I left with money, which was a win.
Okay.
Went home to Minnesota.
Is that because you just hit the ATM like at the airport before you were leaving?
No, I actually this time, I always just plan ahead. I bring a certain amount, and I never take out more. And that's what I did.
Boom.
And you went to Minnesota.
You mean you don't want to pay like $7? They have like ridiculous
Oh,
ATM fees in
yeah, at
Las
least,
Vegas.
right? It's $7 there, and then on the back end too. The blackjack for a bit was terrible. Then it ended up being okay.
Mm-hmm.
Sports bets, not so good.
I didn't.
Why bother with bowl games? It's the dumbest thing.
Yeah.
Everyone says it every year. It's like, oh, you never know what's going to happen. I'm like, I do. And
outsmart
I do
the
not.
system, and then you don't. I didn't do any
SMU.
blackjack or anything this time.
Why is FAU going to be motivated? They lost their coach. SMU, they're really motivated.
Oh, that was like one of the ones that you totally were like, oh yeah, this is going to be the game.
Awful.
Nope.
I did hit a 2-teamer on the first night though. I had Kent State and I had Buffalo. So there we go.
Yeah, but does that help or hinder? Because you hit something like that on the first
that's
night,
the
and you're
worst.
like, oh, this is going to be the trip.
It hinders.
This is going to be the trip.
You're like, I'm hot, baby.
And you don't win anything ever again.
Every game on Saturday I was wrong about.
Yep.
Not even betting. Every game that I would have predicted. Boise State being one of them. Never betted, but I was like, I think they got a good shot. Turns out
they didn't.
They didn't.
Yeah, I mean that's how long it's been since we did a podcast. I mean, coming up today, we'll talk obviously a little bit about the bowl game, the off season. Boise State is 2 coaches light at kind of a critical time right now. I mean, we're less than a month out from the second signing period. So Boise State, for the couple weeks prior to the first signing period, they didn't have an offensive coordinator. And again, more than anything, that's just numbers. That's guys to get out there.
Yeah.
And recruit. So we'll get into that plus a whole lot more.
Yeah.
But
how was your Christmas?
It was
because
good,
I mentioned
man.
mine.
It was good. We wife's family, we celebrated with them on Christmas Eve. Then Christmas Day, we flew home and celebrated with my family. Flying on Christmas, I actually think it's kind of fun flying on Christmas or Christmas Eve because oddly enough, people are actually kind of in good spirits. Like,
I guess
I don't know why,
on those
but
days.
On those days, I think you're just going home to see family, and you're just happy that you're going home to see family. You know, for the most part. One thing I will say this year, I've been trying to peg this, and I couldn't. It felt like there was something missing a little bit this year in terms of the build up to Christmas, and I couldn't figure it out if it was just because we were in Las Vegas most of that week before Christmas working or what it was. I might sound crazy here. I actually like doing some of my shopping out in the stores. I just feel like it adds to kind of the spirit of it all.
I feel
sometimes you meet you have really good customer service that people are just in good spirits.
But there's all the decorations and everyone else is doing the same thing as you.
Yeah, totally. But I did almost all of my shopping online this year because, again, I was in Vegas, so I had to make sure everything was done before then or here when I got back. And then we traveled up to Seattle, so I had to ship everything there.
Yep.
Then on Christmas Day, I'm wrapping all my family's gifts up there. So it just had a little bit of a different feel this year that I'll just have to try to balance it or approach it a little different next year, I'd say.
Yeah, I totally understand that. I get it. I did some of my shopping in stores. Ran into our friend Kaleka over at I was at Pro Image and was grabbing something for my mom. That's where I saw that weird, I tweeted it out. There's a Leighton Vander Esch,
I was
Sam River
there
jersey.
a couple days after you, and I was like, let me see if Dave's right about this. I was like, holy crap, they got I don't know, a dozen Leighton Vander Esch Salmon River High School football jerseys, number 2, in stock.
I mean, they have the last name on it. I don't think they actually had last names on them, but you got to identify it somehow.
It said Vanders, didn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, their real jerseys don't.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah,
yes.
you've been up there.
Yeah. I hear you. Okay.
Weirdly, I was like, high school jerseys. Then I realized, like, probably 15 years ago, I had a Carmelo Anthony Oak Hill Academy jersey. I still have it at home. It's pretty gaudy. It's yellow and whatever. But yeah, I saw Van Der Esch had one. And so, yeah. So I did some in-store shopping. I think that was the day before I went to Vegas, though. So it's kind of like, you kind of got a little bit of the spirit. Then it was like, you're in Las Vegas. Like, when we've been in Hawaii before, you don't necessarily get, even though they say Mele Kaliki Maka, you're still like, yeah, but this doesn't feel right, you know? So, but yeah, but it was still a great Christmas. Did trivia with my family when I was there. We won.
As if you had to tell us.
Had like the 70 people in one house Christmas Eve.
Yeah, that was a crazy Christmas photo, man.
Yeah, my mom's got 8 brothers and sisters.
Did you have to rent a hotel? Like,
we rented a house. We rented a house. We did. That's what they started doing. Like, the other people in the family kind of pitch in, so that way no one has to really worry about cleaning up their house necessarily, you know, or having it damage their house or whatever. And since my parents moved to Colorado,
when you're like, yeah, can we get do you have room for 70?
For 70, yeah.
Do you?
Yeah,
there's houses out there with room for 70
like
people.
Not everyone stays there, but like it was a very large house. Let's put it that way. And so there's a bunch of bedrooms, so some of us stayed there, and then some people just that lived nearby in Minneapolis drove.
Gotcha. That's a good point. Some of the family's there, so. I will say this, as long as you're talking about tweeting out about jerseys, I sent out a tweet. It's Christmas Eve. I feel like I have to explain myself so it doesn't look like I was like trying to do last minute shopping on Christmas Eve. I was looking for a youth Boise State Nike jersey. And the backstory here is it was for my nephew who crushed my heart, has started to kind of like UW. He just turned 7 years old. He's really starting to get into sports, which is awesome. But all of his buddies, he lives back in the Seattle area, and so a bunch of his buddies at school are Husky fans. They went to a Husky game this year, and so he wants to kind of root for the Huskies. So I know at that age you can't tell them, no, don't wear that. You have to kind of almost trick them, if you will. So just buy them other cool stuff.
Sheepdog them, steer them into something else.
Buy them other cool stuff. His favorite color is blue. So in addition to just buying other college shirts to help flood his closet, so it's just not purple and gold UW stuff. I'm trying to. His favorite color is blue. Get him a cooler blue Boise State jersey. I could not find one. I know it's Christmas Eve, so I know it was kind of last minute. But man, there was not a youth Boise State jersey in Boise.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was impossible to find. Yeah. And again, the Nike one, whatever. I couldn't find it. You could find infants or whatever. You could find grown-ups. But that middle gap, youth could not find one.
That's weird.
Yeah.
That's very weird.
I could find, that's the thing. So you walk in, they have Leighton Vander Esch high school jerseys. Yeah. They had a Gardner Minshew Washington State T-shirt jersey that I ended up buying for my brother-in-law.
Yeah, like a jersey.
But you can't get a Boise State youth jersey in this town. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. So, but other than that, Christmas was great. Yeah, it was awesome. We went back and took naps and relaxed, and it was mom made food. It was like I was in high school all over again.
Yeah, same here. My mom making Chex Mix and all that stuff like that. Joked about the time that my brother wanted to make Chex Mix on his own, so he put all the ingredients in a coffee mug, and we thought, well, mom cooks it in the oven, but we can put it in the microwave. My brother put it in the microwave for 10 minutes, and then it basically caught on fire, and it was Minnesota, so we threw it out in the snow, and I think it just stayed there until the spring. And
putting Chex Mix in a microwave in a mug for 10 minutes. Yeah, I'd assume that'd probably catch on fire.
Some birds had it in the spring and were probably pretty bummed out about what they found, but yeah.
That's hilarious.
Well, speaking of Boise State, Washington, that was the last game we saw.
Last game we saw did not go the way that many of us thought it would go. I've tried to wrap my head around this thing because, like you, people see you in the community and they look at you and they go, "What happened in that game?" And
everybody said on Christmas Eve, all 70 people.
Yeah, probably a lot of them did,
though. Were like, you covered that job. What the hell happened?
What happened? Because still, all my friends back, in the Seattle area and stuff, they don't know, that George Halani, continued the streak of 11 straight seasons of 1,000-yard back, but they have a pretty good idea, Boise State usually just shows up and plays well regardless. And so when they don't, they're like, what the hell happened there? I got a lot of that this time back home. Got a lot of it here in Boise too, for that matter.
And we also still here on January 8th, kind of say that a little bit to ourselves. Those of us who follow the team every single day, ask the same question.
Yeah.
Because
I think you can put your finger on some of it. I think that I really do think that in one, this might not be acceptable. I also do just think they played bad. Like,
yeah, that is true.
Played bad. Like,
it is true.
A lot of things did not go their way, and you think that, and it was because of some of the stuff they did. UW scored 38 points on 341 total yards of offense.
Yeah,
that's not a whole lot of total offense for scoring 38 points.
Right.
I mean, if you would have told me going into that game UW's only going to gain 341 yards of total offense, I probably would have been like, oh, how many did Boise State win by then?
Right.
Turns out they lost by 31.
Because they cashed both INTs for touchdowns, right? On the ensuing drive, that helps.
And dominated field position. I mean, it really was kind of like a flashback there watching Chris Peterson teams when he always talked about hidden yards battles and stuff like that, and they kicked the crap out of Boise State in the hidden yards battle.
And I think did they score right before halftime? Yes, I think they did.
It was so long ago, Dave. I think they did. Don't remember.
But like, it was always the Peterson special.
It was right before halftime. They got great field position because, okay. So I'll backdate this now. The first time Boise State played at UNLV this year against UNLV, remember they got the ball back with like just 40 seconds or something before halftime. They were way back up.
That Velasquez field goal.
Yeah, and they hit Khalil Shakir for a couple of big plays, and then Velasquez hits a field goal. And it was a similar situation, just opposite end of the field. But Boise State was down a couple of scores. But Harsin, said let's go try to be aggressive here, and they ended up not converting. And then they punted, and UW got the ball right near midfield, got a couple of plays themselves, and then they were able to go down and score right before halftime.
Right, and that was always the Peterson thing, where they would always so many times when he was here would score right before halftime, get the ball in the second half, score.
Yeah,
and it's
that's almost like that's like a mini turnover within a game that you don't nobody counts for as an actual turnover.
It's 10 or 14 or whatever unanswered points, and that's kind of what they did. And it was just very fitting that for the most part it was kind of a very Chris Peterson game. They didn't turn the ball over once.
Yeah,
they played really good defense. Their offense was not exceptional, but it did enough. So that's a little bit of it, but that's also kind of been Washington this year, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
That's kind of where their team's been. And on the flip side, and I know not a lot of people loved what I wrote afterward, and that's fine. But you're Boise State, and you love to talk about your prowess on offense. When recruits come to your building, what's one of the big things they have? Other than this is a great place to live, top scoring offense, whatever, right? That is your thing. That's what you're known for. You score 7 points. You do it with the guy who you didn't start in the game. If there's any time to be critical, it's then.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. And so, so they, obviously started Hank, and I was of the hive mind that Hank should play. I didn't necessarily think he would start or should start, but I definitely thought he should play.
That's going to be one of the answers or one of the questions that I don't know if will ever get answered, like an honest
exactly
answer.
Why?
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, but
I mean, because you look at a lot of the things that Brian Harsin was saying, leading up to the Mountain West Conference Championship game, after the Mountain West Conference Championship game, and sticking with Jalen Henderson, and I mean, just a lot of it was rewarding a guy that was very patient, selfless, dedicated to the team, no ego. And it was kind of rewarding that. And I'm not saying that Hank has any of that or those are issues with him, but they decided to go back to the kid, and he had only thrown, this is off the top of my head, I remember tweeting it, but like 26 passes in a game since October 5th. I mean, it was
in a game.
Yeah, I mean, he hadn't played very much at all, in basically 2.5 months prior.
Because he had played two games.
Yeah, he started against Hawaii, got hurt.
October 12th, got hurt.
And then he also played against San Jose State,
November
only threw
2nd.
17 passes.
Correct. So there you go. Yeah. And you're right. And so he looked rusty, and he was. And
you can tell too. I mean, I was even go back watching the game a little bit, and there was a throw that he left like it was. I think it was. Oh man, I can't remember if it was Khalil or John now, but he was just throwing like a little hitch over to the left, and left it way inside, and it was almost picked off. And like, it should have been picked off. Probably should have been a pick six for that matter.
Right.
But I mean, just little things like that. Like timing was off, accuracy was off, didn't look good. I will say this, like, he also probably set the bar pretty high for himself with some of, like, his performances. Like, Hank never had a game like that, like a full game like that. He never had just like a flat out throwaway bad game as a true freshman.
True.
His first few starts, and then he finally had one in his final game of the year.
Right. And it's like, and also too, you gotta. It's such a weird season, but like you think about when Chase Cord started against until Washington, maybe the two best defenses they'd play all year in Wyoming and BYU.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are like, oh, well, Cord wasn't that great. Well, I don't know who would have been. I don't know if Bachmeier would have been better. I don't know if Chase or if Jalen would have been better against those teams. And then you go against Washington, a team that was very inspired.
Yeah.
Has a very good defense. And you hadn't played since November 2nd.
Yeah.
That it's like, you have to wonder. You honestly do. And I think this is a valid theory, and who knows if there's ever going to be an answer. Zach Hill was probably like Jalen Henderson. We used to have to stick with Jalen Henderson.
Yeah.
And Brian Harsin might be like, well, we need to get Hank involved. He's healthy. He beat Florida State.
Yeah.
He hadn't played in a game before that. We can ride with him, and that would make sense. It's not exactly what he said, but it would make sense. And I personally was of the mind that like maybe they would put him in, let's say the third series of the game, give him a series, and then if Jalen struggles like Hank did, maybe you put in Hank and keep him in consistently.
Right.
That's what I thought they were going to do, and that it was the other way around.
I think that that was my thought as well until 2 days prior to the bowl game, when things started to change a little bit. You think that, why don't you just continue to stay with the hot hand, and if the hot hand cools, then you see what else you got. But this weird thing where Jalen Henderson was sick.
Yeah.
And was it the night before or 2 nights before? Now I can't remember.
That we
got a text giving us an update on Jalen's status.
Was it Thursday afternoon?
I feel like it was.
I think it was Thursday
like 2 days
afternoon.
before.
Yeah. Because he missed that practice Wednesday that we were at.
Yeah.
And we all saw it. And we have an omerta, which is isn't that the mob word for don't say anything?
Yeah.
And it was like, hey, this is important, especially if you can't go. And then he missed practice Thursday.
There's also other media members there too from
other outlets that maybe didn't understand or weren't. Yeah, makes sense. And then Thursday, he didn't practice. We weren't aware of that because it was closed. And then it was Thursday afternoon that they
we got an update. Like, definitely appreciative of the update, but I'm pretty sure all of us said the same thing. I mean, I remember Will and I reporting it on television, and we were even joking at the time, like, news we usually don't get at all, especially, and it's definitely news we never get when we can't ask about it or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, it was just kind of like, oh.
That's odd. Yeah.
Well, we'll report it. But it just seemed like it was almost setting the stage for something. I don't know,
Okay. If you were ever to try to, not even conspiracy theory, just try to think of subterfuge or make people think one way or whatever.
Yeah.
You were 100% allowed to do it this season, especially at that position, especially with frankly, how Brian Harsin operates. 100%. So if you thought immediately like, something's up, you're probably on the right path. You know what I mean? There's a lot of between the lines reading that we've had to do this season and logic jumping. And here's the problem with that. You didn't say that, right? I didn't write that because we need some form of facts to prove it. So maybe a podcast is the way to get it out there. But it's like some of that stuff is like, we thought it, but it's like we don't have proof, and that's the sticky situation we're put in with our jobs. Is like, how do you? What might that mean? And you're just like, I mean, it could mean this, but what if I say it and then they're like, oh, you idiot? And you're like, well,
I feel like we need Ralphie's Dakota ring off the Christmas story. We do. And all we find out is that we're supposed to drink more Ovaltine.
Exactly.
Drink more Ovaltine. It is what it is. I mean, they went down there. They lost 38-7. We heard Chris Peterson try to deny the storyline all week long, and he did not cave. He, for the life of him, whatever you asked him, he was going to tell you that this game was not about him. It was about two good teams competing and yada, yada, yada. it was good to see Coach Pete, without a doubt. Saw his family too, his boys, his wife. They're kind. They're awesome people. I mean, there's no other way to kind of sum that up. They're really good people.
I was there with you the first night at the helicopter thing. Seeing Chris Peterson, like hugging Brian Harsin and stuff like that, surreal enough. But just having Chris Peterson right there in the flesh. After we covered him, me a little longer than you, but you were there when he was here during some,
couple years,
part of the glory years. And him being at Washington now, but also knowing that was going to be his last game, and us just sitting there with him face to face. Usually he's, a little reclusive when it comes to that sort of thing. That was kind of mandated.
Yeah.
It was one of the most surreal things. It was great. He was excellent. Like for my stories that I needed and everything.
If you ventured away from the storyline or anything that might make it about him in his last game or anything like that.
Correct.
Anything else, Chris was great. Talked about Boise, loved it, still loves it. Has a place here. They love traveling back here. They love Seattle. I mean, he gave us a lot, but that was the one thing that he just would not crack about.
That is true. That's true.
He did not cave, and it didn't matter who was asking, when they were asking, press conference, one-on-ones, helicopter event, anything. He was not cracking on that question, and the game wasn't going to be about him.
I think my first question was, I was like, I forget what I said. I said, I know you've been asked this a lot, and then I asked him some random question, and he was ready.
Oh,
and he looks at me and he's just like, So, because I knew that had been done to death, but he really helped the story that I was writing and stuff like that, and it was great. He seemed as relaxed as I've ever seen him. I mean, the day they named Kellen the starting quarterback, I'm trying to think of other times where I've been around Pete where he's just been like, had this confidence or just relaxed attitude. Not many times.
Yeah,
that was one of them, and it was just really interesting to see that. Who knows? Now you can extrapolate that and be like, oh, should have known then that they were going to go out and kick their butt.
He did joke around though, like, and I do think that did it make the difference between 38-7 and an actual closer good game? No, I'm not saying that, but Boise State was down an offensive coordinator. They're trying to get out and recruit for the early signing period. Pete was joking around like he didn't go out on the road recruit. He hung out with the guys.
He said he was like lifting.
Yeah, he was lifting with the guys. He's watching tape. I mean, he didn't have to go out on the road and recruit because he was done with that. It was off. That was Jimmy Lake's duty.
I wonder if those 2 weeks that he did that, I bet he was like, damn,
why can't it always be like this?
If this was my job, I would not be stepping down.
Yeah.
Exactly. But that was just a pretty good anecdote. It was Pete. I think Pete even volunteered that.
Oh, he did. Yeah, he volunteered that. He was joking around. That was his comedy.
That was the day before the bowl game. That's it's some insight a bit, and this little anecdote like that. It's just like that was just almost jarring. Like, oh, and then someone asked, I think it was Miles Bryant, like, oh, what's your funniest Chris Peterson story? And he had some story about it when he came in the locker room and was like dancing or whatever, things like that. There's just some insight that they offered the day before the game.
I thought that one thing that kind of it brought back too is Chris Peterson and his answers. They're like 20, 30 seconds, man.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's concise.
You got to listen. You have a next question ready to go because he answers it and it's like on to the next question.
Or the shrug when he's just like,
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. But again, that game kind of is what it is. I'd say the highlight of it for Boise State was Helani going over the 1,000-yard mark, which he was so close as is. But even at halftime, you're sitting there like, wow, he's still not there yet. And then he broke an early run in the second half that got him over the 1,000-yard mark, and he eclipsed it by 14 yards. I
think it was he eclipsed it and then one more carry. That was it, right? I was going to say what was really interesting to me, and again, why people are criticizing the quarterback decision. I mean, I'll forever be honest and think that Hank Bachmeier is a very, very good quarterback and will be.
Yeah.
But you saw the creativity, the confidence when Jalen went in the offense, whether it was in the play calling or anything like that.
Yeah.
So that's what stood out to me was that one drive was like, oh my God! Think about it. What if the game started that way?
They were in a bad spot when Jalen came in. I mean, the hole was deep.
Yeah.
And he came in, and even given the circumstance, you're like, it feels like Boise State's playing with a little more energy right now.
Yeah. It just you felt it, and then But in the end, like his numbers and stuff, and like the next couple drives weren't that great.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
maybe Washington quickly was like, all right, here's what we're gonna do,
had a
stop
plan
you,
for him
and they did.
too. Yeah.
So
can I ask you and maybe I'm going too forward here or whatever, or moving along too quickly. But so what do we make of this season? I guess.
Oh no,
you know, Boise State finishes 12-2. They lose a bowl game, which I always think it's so funny because whether you win or lose a bowl game, the narrative is the same afterwards.
It is.
Oh, it motivates us for the offseason if you lose. Oh, it motivates us to momentum. It's like either way. You spin it. I mean, that's always the way that it's spun, whether you win or lose.
That's so true. It's so true.
Motivation or momentum, but there's no difference. I mean, it's all the same. You
have motivation. It's just coming from different sources.
Yes.
You're absolutely right.
But the one thing I want to ask you, Dave, is that I saw a tweet. And Bronco Nation every right to be disappointed in the game because Boise State lost, and they in a fashion that they typically just do not lose by.
That they had not done since they lost at Washington. In 2012.
And that was the first game of the
13.
Robert Prince offense with Joe Southwick at the trigger.
Right.
Enough said.
Moving on.
But I saw a tweet that said, we kind of knew this wasn't a 12-1 team. Same tweet was kind of critical of preparation for the game and stuff like this, and it just got me thinking, Dave. Like you can't have it both ways. Like you can't say that they weren't a 12-1 team, and you knew that because 12-1's pretty good. I mean, to me, that would suggest that if they were 12-1 going into the game and you didn't think they were a 12-1 team, that does mean they overachieved technically, right?
Yes, it would. Yes.
So
on its face, yes.
Yeah. So I don't know. Take 12-2 for what it's worth. I think that you added up. I think this is the way that I would probably view it. I think that a lot just hit in the final game of the season. A
lot of kind of the weird storylines that they've existed all year.
Yeah, they all just kind of added up and hit in the final game of the season, and that was the byproduct. I
agree with you.
Yeah,
I agree with you on that. I think. Yeah, it was a little bit of an encapsulation of everything into one game. You can, there are some things that stood out, like they didn't give up a sack, which is weird because Hank got pressured and got hit a lot, and they couldn't run the ball very well. But they didn't give up a sack, if that's how you want to measure it. But I actually had a question in the mailbag that I wrote. I think it ran last week. Someone did ask me, "Do you consider the season a success?" Would I? And I say, yeah, but. Is it like an overwhelming one? No, because there's two things. They did win on their board. Like we've been in that team room a lot.
Mountain West Championship.
Mountain West Championship and a bowl game, correct? So they win the Mountain West Championship. That's a big goal. You go 12-1. You go 9-0 against Mountain West teams. Yeah. That's a successful season.
Yeah.
I don't think losing the bowl game totally ruins the season, but the fashion that you do it, and when it's a team goal that is in no uncertain terms a team goal, you can't just brush it off and go, it's a bowl game.
Agreed.
Right. So that's part of why I don't think it's a total success. Plus, they lost to BYU. People here don't love that. And, there were other things, but was this a successful season? Yes.
Yeah.
Do I think, and I wrote this story, even as much as I did not enjoy how things were handled during and after the Vegas Bowl from a coach's standpoint, was this Brian Harson's best coaching season? I think so. I think he did a hell of a job this year. And
we do. It is easy to forget that. That's another thing too. I mean, he was. Fans might not like that I say this either, but he was pretty close to flawless, managing 3 different starting quarterbacks throughout the course of a season and going 12-1 doing it.
As well
darn near flawless.
As well
who bats 1,000 in that situation, right? Dave?
As well as you can do it with, because you have to. When I mentioned when they did it in 97, that was the last time they had done that. They did it because they weren't good. Yeah. and there were issues, as in, even one of those quarterbacks ended up becoming a wide receiver the next year and stuff like that. So, but just that sort of thing. It's pretty impressive to me. Just the fact that they were able to do that at the quarterback position, like you said, or the perception, which statistically the offensive line maybe wasn't as horrible as people think.
Yeah, you actually pointed this out on Twitter the other day.
Oh, the Pro Football Focus had at Boise State.
Twitter. Did I say the Twitter? You pointed
It's
this out on Twitter the other
Twitter's.
day.
But like, some people were having some disagreements about it. I think they had like Illinois, their O-line like 10th, and there was someone like it probably wasn't even the 10th best in the Big Ten. Mm-hmm. But I wrote about it. Boise State allowed fewer sacks this year than last year. They averaged slightly more yards per carry. The last 6 games, I think they gave up like 8 sacks, and they gave up 8 sacks in the first 2 games. Mm-hmm. But it was still, don't get me wrong, people, it was still probably the weakest group on the field. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so I mean, all those factors considering, I think Boise State being 12-2, it's a success. Overwhelming success, no. But a B+ type season, yes. That's the way I see it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just think, especially because of where this program has been before with Power 5 or New Year's 6 bowl victories and all that stuff. Yeah, it is. Yeah, I think that's. I'm fine with that.
But they've also had bowl victories where people laud them. Oregon, people are like, oh, remember that? Mm-hmm. Remember how good they were in that bowl game? Remember Leighton Vander Esch? They set an FBS record for yardage differential when they beat NIU. Dump your chest about that. Mm-hmm. You lose 38-7. Well, Washington was more motivated. It's like, again, can't have it both ways.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Correct.
So, but to that point, and we did talk about the coaching things. Right now we're sitting at a point with Boise State. They have 2 vacancies as of this moment. Mm-hmm. We're recording. It's right about 3 p.m. on Wednesday. Yeah. So this could change at any moment. Mm-hmm. We have recorded podcasts before when they've announced new hires during the podcast when they hired Jaleel Brown, if you remember, had you on the phone. Just quickly, your thoughts on that, and where do they go? Because so basically, Zach Hill left, which we've addressed, but Lee Mark's now officially going to Fresno State.
So often, I feel like you want some of these vacancies to be filled immediately, but that's not the way that Harsin has gone with his last couple of hires. I mean, he left last year was Zach Alley. I mean, that position was open for a few weeks before he decided to
during
shuffle
spring
the
practice
deck and add Zach Alley. So isn't there like a coaching convention or something that comes up in January or sometimes
the AFCA or whatever?
Yeah, and you go down there, you can meet people, and I don't have a problem with that because the last few hires have been pretty good. I mean, look at you went up to Eastern Washington and you hired Jeff Schmedding, and I was thinking about this the other day, and Zach Alley. I mean, look at what Zach Alley had to work with at linebacker this year. He basically had a guy that was a walk-on at one point in time playing a lot of snaps after one of their top backers and Ezekiel Noah goes down, and for the most part that group played pretty good. Yeah. I mean, I would say for what they had, I feel like I'd give that group a B+ or whatever, maybe even
I'd say unspectacular, solid.
I would say. But again, they didn't have Leighton Vander Esch back there, Dave. You know what I mean?
It's just, no, you're right. You're right. And again, we talk about a bar being set and stuff. They just, outside of him at those positions, if you want to talk about getting a lot of turnovers and stuff like that, not necessarily.
Yeah.
In the last couple of years, dudes like Ben Weaver rack up tons of tackles and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But
well, I guess I'm just saying though that I think that Zach Alley.
I think he was totally a guy who had never been remotely close to this area of the country.
Comes out here
and never, had only been a GA really. I mean, he worked very briefly at Charlotte.
Yeah.
And being able to come up here and take over a group that was in transition a little bit.
Yeah.
Especially with Maeva gone and everything like that.
He basically lost like his top 2 linebackers, Maeva gone, and then Ezekiel Noah going down.
gets hurt. Riley Whitby coming off of the ACL.
And then the other guy there, like I said, a former walk-on. I mean, so
about
given
this?
the parts, I think he did, proved to be a good hire.
And how about this? The guy ends up being a defensive scout team player of the year, wasn't academically eligible, and Josh Booker Brown. Yeah. There's another one.
Yeah, so they were working with some. The chips were stacked against him at that position.
So I think that was a good hire too.
I guess what I'm saying is be patient with it because I think that he has proven that he can hire good assistant coaches. I mean, look at look at his initial staff right now. Mike Sanford just left Utah State to get back to a Power 5 gig, going to Minnesota. They're coming off their first 11-win season since 1904. Prospective Bronco fans.
That's right.
Elijah Drinkowitz is the head coach at a Power 5 school. I mean, some of that initial staff that he put together is doing big things. A number of them are up at the University of Washington. Even if they're in their same positions, they're making a lot more money than they did when they were at Boise State. So I think that he's proven he can hire good assistant coaches. Lee Marks, as you were just saying, though, he's the most recent one. This one, it just does appear interesting or odd, whatever you want to say. Like, you're kind of thinking like, oh, so where's he going? Oh, a fellow Mountain West school. Well, what's he doing? Still coaching running backs.
Where's he going?
And he's proven in the past that he's not the biggest fan of Fresno State.
Correct.
That changed clearly.
Something. I mean, I think there's still a rivalry aspect to it, but like I try to write about it a little bit, trying to explain it the best I can. He does have some familiarity with that new staff. Ryan Grubb, the OC, who was actually there before and has been held over by Kalen DeBoer. He was the OC at Sioux Falls, an NAIA school, in 2010 and 11 when Lee Marks was there with his first on-coaching jobs after he was at CU as a strength guy. So he knows them. So there is some familiarity there. There's some previous work experience and some history. We mentioned that he's going to be getting like an assistant head coach title. What this reminds me of personally, I haven't tweeted it and I didn't write about it. I probably will mention it.
Saved it exclusively
for the podcast, baby.
For the podcast.
Is a couple years ago, I remember talking on signing day to Marcel Yates and how he wanted to be the defensive coordinator. That was his dream. That was what he wanted to do. That was not an opportunity that was going to present itself. After Justin Wilcox left, then you've got, Pete Kwiatkowski. Pete Kwiatkowski's made no bones about it. He's fine doing that. And so Yates had kind of mentioned that. He wasn't afraid to say it. And if that's his career ambition, and Brian Harsin has said this, if guys have career ambitions to do a certain thing, he will
go chase it.
So
he himself did it.
It reminds me of that because Marcel Yates, of course, then left to A&M and then ended up coming back to Boise State. So I do wonder in a way if kind of Marks kind of saw the writing on the wall. If they're going to hire a new OC, and it's not going to be him, whoever it is probably is going to stick around for a couple years. So for him, in those couple years, maybe he has a better opportunity of doing that somewhere else. That's the way I see it. But there's also a factor of it's an in-conference rival. He's probably not going to get paid that much more. It's not going to be a huge leap, most likely. He made $185 last year. The running backs coach last year made $205. So maybe if you adjust a little bit, maybe it's a little bit.
I would say assistant head coach title too probably bumps you up a little bit more. I mean, look at Kent Riddle's got that title, and he makes a little bit more than obviously Lee Marks.
Yeah, and so you think about those factors, and you've been here for 5 years as an assistant, as a running backs coach.
You've had good success with the running backs that you've brought here.
Yeah. Very good recruiter.
Yeah. I mean, this might be a thing too. I mean, we were just talking about Chris Peterson. He was always a guy talking about pushing your comfort zone and things like that. So I have no idea whether or not that was ringing in Lee Marks' head when, he decided to pull the trigger on this thing or not. But I mean, like, that's the guy that Chris Peterson had a huge influence on all these guys.
Yeah. And there was a time early on in Harsin's tenure where he had some turnover on the offensive side of the ball. And people maybe wondered, is it, he's an offensive guy. Is his hand in the pot too much or whatever? Maybe. But you also have to consider this offensive staff was together for 3 years, which is not common around here.
It's not.
Even under Brian Harsin or Chris Peterson, well, Chris Peterson always was able to maintain staff pretty well, but it's just not common anywhere to even do it for 3 years, especially at a place like this. So kind of maybe saw the writing, not the writing on the wall, but maybe that there was if someone's going to change, maybe it's him. Brad Bedell's still the O-line coach. I know some people are mad about that. I don't know if he's going anywhere. I wouldn't imagine he would. If Brian Harsin was going to make a move, he would have done it by now. You would think. Yeah. So as long as we're talking about coaching really quick, do we want to bring up? We say when I wrote my story about Chris Peterson, I talked about his legacy, and I was talking to Nancy Napier, who's at Boise State. She goes, "You make it sound like he's dead," and I was like, okay, great point. What I'm trying to say is like, his legacy lives on in a way, and I was like, yeah, that does sound bad.
But if his legacy is living on, does that mean that he's
A zombie? No. Our dearly departed friend, Rocky Long. Not departed.
Just from the head coaching position at San Diego State.
He, honestly, is a treasure. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry.
No, we're going to have one less set of cowboy boots at Mountain West Media Days next year.
Yeah, and you know, I'm sure, you know, you appreciated his honesty and his bone dry sense of humor. But he liked Ronnie.
You're kind of smiling. You're kidding. Okay, I got him. You're kidding, Rocky. Gotcha.
That's a wry smile. I saw one muscle on your face move.
Exactly.
I know he liked to rankle fans, and guess what? I think it's awesome because guess what? Yeah, your team is, you know, the best one in the Mountain West or whatever in Boise State. Rocky had a good record, all things considered, against Boise State.
You did.
And guess what? Got to respect him for not wanting to kiss the ring. You know, Boise State fans, if someone was like, we're Oregon, you'd be like, you know, you'd be upset, right? Well, guess what? You can't expect it the other way, where all the Mountain West teams need to bow to you. If you want someone,
I know
you want someone's best. Rocky's bringing it.
Getting into the Mountain West, like, you want rivalries and stuff like that. And for a while there, it just felt like there was nothing.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, Rocky starts to speak up, and it was so easy to circle San Diego State as, you know, maybe a potential rival or something like that. You know. So
if only they were in the same division.
If only they were in the same division and played every year.
Same thing with Fresno.
Same thing with Fresno.
But yeah, so it looks like Brady Hoke's going to be the head coach, which is so hilarious because Brady Hoke was the head coach there.
Yep. And then Rocky replaced him, right?
He had Rocky on his staff.
Yes.
And then when he left,
Brady went to Michigan.
Correct. And then Rocky brought him back. Yeah. And now he's replacing Rocky, which is pretty great. I'll just always remember, you know, Rocky, you know, when he sent beer to all the coaches' room, and he goes, yeah, it's from this brewery in San Diego that I heard is pretty good. And I'm like, Ballast Point? And he's like, yes. Yeah. He was very excited about that. But anyway, now all of a sudden,
Brian Harsin is the second longest.
Yeah, I saw you tweet that.
Him in the Mountain West. Him and Craig
Bowl are tied, right?
Just wrapped up their 6th season, so technically they're going into their 7th season at their respective schools. The oldest or the longest tenured coach is Craig Calhoun at Air Force, who's been there for 13 years. That's twice as long as anybody else in the league at their respective schools, but 5 out of the 12, so 41.7% of the Mountain West will have new coaches next year.
And none of them left for like Power 5 gigs. Who knows? I mean, Rocky may end up being a Power 5 DC.
That's actually kind of a good point, though. It all was kind of a couple firings, but there were definitely 2 that were like, I'm moving on for other reasons.
Long and Tedford. Yeah, Long's, who knows, remains to be seen if he's going to end up somewhere as like a Power 5 DC or if he's just kind of going to chill out for a bit or whatever.
I do know that I read an article the other day that Mike Leach apparently wants a defensive coordinator that preaches controlled chaos.
Oh my God, that wouldn't be fair. Like,
can you imagine Mike Leach and Rocky Long sitting in the same room?
Can you imagine? Like, I'm a sucker for, I don't want to say gimmicky systems, but abnormal systems. If you put an air raid in a 3-3-5 defense,
that is the version.
Actually, I think that's what Hal Mummy did at New Mexico State to less success.
Okay,
I think I'm 100% sure that's what he did. He had Joe Lee Dunn, the famous 3-3-5 guy.
That's totally like an approach that Leach would take, though. Like, how can I do what I do on offense on defense?
Yes,
basically.
Hell yeah, I think. I mean, that would be scary. I would not appreciate it. Because it's not my school.
I would just hope they could tackle, because this year Washington State had a very tough time tackling.
Do you think? You know, we also mentioned that, you know, that Kellen's is gonna stay. With Dallas. That was, of course.
Can I tell you one thing that bugs me?
Yeah, please.
One thing that bugs me is each NFL team has their own website, right? DallasCowboys.com.
Yep.
And we're not talking like this is you know, Joe Schmo running DallasCowboys.com. This is like the official site of the Dallas Cowboys.
Yep.
And they send out these tweets and these stories, and it's like, they're like reporting rumors that other people are talking about. And I'm like,
about
just
Washington.
Go upstairs and ask.
Yeah, exactly.
This site is literally run by this organization. Go upstairs and ask.
Go talk to Stephen Jones. Talk to Jerry.
Why are you doing this to us?
Yeah. It mentioned that like he was like strongly considering Washington.
Yeah.
Which may be true. I have not talked to my dear friend Kellen about it, but and it may be true. And it may be true, but also
Prosper's in Eastern Washington. I'm just gonna like to think that means that you know they side with the Cougars and he would never go there. So.
I don't know about if he would never go there, but he's
Dave,
talked to you about this before.
That's what I'm just going with, Dave.
He's talked to you about this before. He grew up a Washington State fan. He loved Jason Gesser and all those guys. So
again,
people say,
Dave, this is what I'm telling myself to make myself feel better.
But people
this
say,
is no fact or anything.
But everyone said, like, oh, he's going home to Washington, and it's like, is Prosser to Boise and Prosser to Seattle somewhat comparable drive? Like, you know what I mean? It's not like it's not like he's just like rolling out his back door and like, hey, Montlake.
I also think that anytime that anybody like tries to say that he's not from Boise or Boise State can't claim him or something like that, it's like, get out the pitchforks. He's not from Seattle. He's from Boise or whatever. He's not from Boise. I know he's from Prosser, but still, like,
if Yakima Valley had a football team, that's where he would belong. But
I just, I just couldn't get into some of these rumors and stuff like that. And I think you can look at it as simple as this, Dave. There are 130 FBS offensive coordinator jobs. There are 32 NFL offensive coordinator jobs. If you have a chance to be an NFL offensive coordinator, you can't say no to that to go be a college offensive coordinator. I mean, like,
at his age,
you just can't. Like,
and he's never recruited or anything like that.
Yeah,
that's when I wrote. Someone asked where I think he'll be next season. I did say the NFL. Mm-hmm. Big leap of faith here. But I did say that I thought he'd be in the NFL in 2020.
Yeah,
because of some of these reasons that we mentioned.
I felt like this was going to be the case all along. Mm-hmm. And another reason why, if it doesn't work out in the NFL, you can still always go back and be a college offensive coordinator.
That's true.
I mean,
you probably aren't going to.
That's always there for him. I
don't want to use this word, but I fail upwards. You're probably not going to.
Yeah, I mean, and even that, if there is anything good about that Cowboys team that you could point to, they're number 1 in total yards in the NFL this last year. They were number 6 or 7 in scoring this last year. I mean, like, some of the stuff, Dak Prescott had a career year. He missed the Cowboys single-season passing record by 1 single yard. I think he threw for 4,902 for Dak. Tony Romo in 12 threw for 4,903.
I thought you were going to say Quincy Carter.
They also went 8-8 that year.
I thought you were going to say Quincy Carter.
Quincy Carter.
But like,
I don't think you could Quincy Carter throw for almost 5,000 yards.
What about his career?
Yeah,
maybe close.
His career.
But he, I think he just makes sense there. I really do. And I said in that mailbag when I've talked to him before, he'd love to come back here someday. Mm-hmm. Someday doesn't mean now. Mm-hmm. I still think it could happen.
I still think it could happen, but we're just not at that moment.
We're not at that point.
No,
we're just not
there.
If Boise State had a head coaching vacancy, now we're talking.
Maybe you could see something there.
Yeah.
Even given that, doesn't have, again, no recruiting experience, any of that. I mean, he'd have to assemble a really good staff.
The funniest part is if he did go to Washington as the OC, right? Hypothetic here.
Mm-hmm.
People would be very upset. But what if Brian Harsin left in like 2-3 years?
Yeah.
Kellen or Andy Avalos may already be a head coach at that point. Wouldn't he make the most sense?
Yes.
Would people be miffed about Washington then? Mm-hmm. Probably not.
Probably not.
he has to get, if you want to be a college head coach.
Brian Harsin went to freaking Texas to be an offensive coordinator.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then that worked. I would say that I know that Washington has probably had more successes of late, but I mean, Texas is. Yeah. Come on, you're talking about like a top 5 legacy program in all of college football. So, he went there to put himself in a position to come be a head coach at Boise State.
2 vacancies. Think they go Boise State ties for either one? I think at least one. That's just my guess.
Yeah?
Yeah. I'm doing a predictions thing in the Athletic soon.
Okay.
I don't know what. Matt Miller. There's DJ Harper. I mentioned him as a running backs coach. I don't know if that's even feasible. I just think that
I think you literally just convinced me that at least one. I will say not both.
Probably not both.
I will confidently say not both.
And I think Brian Harsin, as you mentioned casually to us when we talked about Zach Hill, I think he's been pretty proud of being able to hire guys from outside the Boise State atmosphere. But I do think that there's enough of a
I think what you mean by that too
where they could.
I think that you need to go get people that diversify like what you do here, and just not always lean on what you know. Like you do have.
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, so I think at least so one of those two, just a guess, because they are not in the business of like telling us we're interviewing these 5 guys. Mm-hmm. So,
or anybody.
Pretty cool. I'll say I know about as much as anybody listening who it might be. Mm-hmm. I might have a slight idea of who they might be interested in, but that's about it. Mm-hmm. And that answer may come by the time this is up. I don't know.
Yeah, but not for now. So we're marching on into the off season. We'll have plenty more to discuss. I mean, even when it comes to Boise State football, we didn't touch on the proposed stadium renovation today. Check out the Athletic. Ezra Cleveland and Curtis Weaver going to the NFL. I mean, it's been a while since we've been able to do a podcast. So coming up next week, we'll hit on those topics and a lot more. It's also basketball season, so we'll broaden our horizons a little bit.
And how about Tyler Vanderwall going to Idaho State? Got to mention the Roar.
The Roar. That one caught me off guard, I'm not going to lie.
But
as our good friend Michael Katz said, or reported, that Vanderwall said they throw the hell out of the ball.
Yeah, I think something like that, yeah.
Yeah, so he's excited to go there because they throw a lot.
Did Idaho State, when they pitched it, they said, you're going to be the one that saves me because after all, you're my Vanderwall?
I don't know.
That is how we start a year.
That's how we start a year. We appreciate you guys listening. We will see you next week on Jay and Dave's Sports Bar, serving the Idaho sports community.